with Maria and welcome to SC Global News. From Pope Leo XIV praying at the tomb of Pope Francis before leaving to Castel Gandolfo to the Vatican recognizing the Catholic schools in England and Wales as pilgrims of hope, we have many stories to cover. Pope Leo XIV celebrated Mass at the altar of the chair in St. Peter's Basilica, offering it in suffrage for Pope Francis and for the cardinals and bishops who had passed away over the past year. Later, on his way to Castel Gandolfo, he paused at the Basilica of St. Mary Major to pray before the tomb of Pope Francis. Before heading to Castel Gandolfo for his weekly day of rest, Pope Leo XIV stopped at the Basilica of St. Mary Major to pray at the tomb of his predecessor and in front of the image of Salus Populi Romani. On the marble slab where a white rose is always placed in memory of Saint Therese of Lisieux, a constant spiritual presence in the life of Pope Francis, Pope Leo XIV laid a bouquet of white roses. The gesture served as a tribute to his predecessor, who rests between Forza Chapel and the Pauline Chapel. The Pauline Chapel houses the revered icon of Salus Populi Romani, which Pope Francis frequently visited before and after his international trips or hospital stays. The Holy Father also paused in prayer in front of the Marian image before leaving the Basilica around 8:15 p.m. Earlier in the day, Pope Leo celebrated Mass at the altar of the chair in St. Peter's Basilica, offering it in suffrage for Pope Francis and for the cardinals and bishop who had passed away over the past year. With great affection, the Holy Father dedicated the Mass to his predecessor, recalling in his homily that Pope Francis died after opening the holy door and imparting the Easter blessings to Rome and to the whole world. He added that thanks to the Jubilee, this first celebration takes on a special meaning. It is imbued with the spirit of Christian hope. 2 days after his election to the See of Peter, Pope Leo XIV visited the tomb of Pope Francis. He returned there on June 2, 2025, following the Corpus Christi procession from St. John Lateran to the Basilica of St. Mary Major. US President Donald Trump has waded into New York City mayoral race, endorsing Andrew Cuomo and warning that federal funding could be slashed if Zohran Mamdani wins. He urged voters to unite behind Cuomo, calling Mamdani's agenda a disaster and insisting a vote for Republican Curtis Silva would only aid the Democrat. With billions in federal aid at stake, Trump's intervention has heightened tensions just days before the election.
President Donald Trump has issued a forceful intervention in the upcoming New York City mayoral election, endorsing former Governor Andrew Cuomo and warning that significant federal funding could be withheld if the Democratic nominee Zohran Mamdani secures victory. In a post on his social media platform, Trump stated that the city would receive only the very minimum as required from the federal government if Mamdani becomes mayor, arguing that his policies represent a complete and total economic and social disaster. Trump also hypothetically framed the election as a stark choice. Whether you personally like Andrew Cuomo or not, you really have no choice. You must vote for him. He is capable of it. Mamdani is not. The mayoral race pits Mamdani, a 34-year-old state assembly member and self-described democratic socialist, ahead in the polls against Cuomo, running as an independent, and Republican candidate Curtis Silva. Trump argued that a vote for Silva would effectively help Mamdani, urging voters to rally behind Cuomo. With New York City receiving roughly $7.4 billion in federal aid and about 6.4 of its annual budget, the stakes of Trump's warning raise questions about the federal city funding relationship ahead of Tuesday's election.
Typhoon Kalmegi has devastated the Philippines, leaving at least 26 people dead and causing widespread landslides, flooding and destruction across multiple provinces. Northern Luzon suffered the most casualties, while coastal and southern regions also reported deaths and severe damage. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has declared a state of calamity, deploying thousands of responders as more heavy rains are expected. With over 1 million displaced and major infrastructure damaged, the country faces a long and challenging path to recovery.
Super Typhoon Karamagi, with winds exceeding 200 km per hour, hit the Philippines on November 2nd, killing 26 and causing widespread destruction. Northern Luzon, particularly Cagayan and Isabela, reported 15 deaths from landslides and collapsed homes. Bicol's coastal villages faced severe flooding, claiming 8 lives, including children swept away by rivers. Samar and Leyte recorded 5 deaths from fallen power lines and accidents. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. declared a state of calamity in 12 provinces, mobilizing 50,000 troops for relief efforts. With 1.5 million displaced and infrastructure heavily damaged, recovery could take months. International aid from the United Nations and Red Cross is en route, but the storm, the 15th this season, underscores the Philippines' vulnerability to worsening climate threats. Experts call for enhanced disaster resilience measures to address escalating storm risk.
50 years of faith and diplomacy take center stage in Sri Lanka this week as Archbishop Paul Richard Gallagher, the Vatican Secretary for Relations with States and International Organizations, arrives to mark the Golden Jubilee of ties with the Holy See. His 6-day visit focuses on strengthening peace and interreligious dialogue while honoring the memory of victims of the 2019 Easter Sunday attacks through meetings with national leaders and visits to affected sites.
Archbishop Paul Richard Gallagher, the Vatican Secretary for Relations with States and International Organizations, is on a 6-day visit to Sri Lanka from November 3rd to 8th. The tour marks the 50th anniversary of diplomatic ties between the Holy See and the island nation. According to Vatican News, it also underscores the shared commitment to peace, reconciliation, and interfaith dialogue. Upon arrival, Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs Arun Hemachandra received Archbishop Gallagher, as reported by the Sri Lankan Foreign Ministry. His schedule includes meetings with Prime Minister Harini Amarasuriya, President Anurakumara Dissanayake, and Foreign Minister Vijita Herath. He is also participating in a conference on the Holy See's perspective on dialogue and peace. The visit includes a strong pastoral element with a Mass of Thanksgiving at St. Lucia's Cathedral in Colombo and visits to sites affected by the 2019 Easter Sunday bombings that killed more than 250 people. Church officials said the gesture reflects the Vatican's continued solidarity with victims and their families. Later in the week, Archbishop Gallagher plans to meet Buddhist leaders at the Malvat and Asgiriya temples in Kandy and make a stop at the National Seminary of Our Lady of Lanka. Vatican News reported that the Sri Lankan Church described the trip as a moment of renewal in faith and fraternity, highlighting its spiritual and diplomatic significance.
Faith takes shape in stone this week as construction begins on the Eternal Wall of Answered Prayer in Warwickshire, a 51-meter Mobius strip-shaped monument built to showcase 1 million stories of divine intervention. The project, founded by Richard Gamble, aims to stand as a lasting symbol of faith, hope, and answered prayer for generations.
Construction of the Eternal Wall of Answered Prayer near Coleshill, Warwickshire, begins on Wednesday after the charity behind the project confirmed it had reached its £40 million funding target, Premier Christian News reported. The 51-meter-high Mobius strip-shaped monument is set to become the UK's largest Christian landmark, visible from the M6, M42, HS2 and Birmingham Airport. The structure will feature 1 million bricks, each symbolizing a personal testimony of Jesus answering prayer. The project also includes a visitor center and 10 acres of green space designed to attract and inspire an estimated 800,000 passers-by each week. Founder Richard Gamble, a former Leicester City FC chaplain, said, "The monument represents a landmark of hope where every brick tells a story of faith and transformation." He recalled feeling called to the project 21 years ago while carrying a cross through his country. Gamble added that the wall will serve as a digital archive of Christian faith. He envisioned young people around the world discovering the stories online and finding renewed belief through them. The eternal wall, he said, reintroduces the narrative of what God has done in our country, preserving a living testimony of hope for generations.
The Basilica of Saint Benedict in Norca, Italy reopened for worship this weekend following a 4-year reconstruction of the 13th century church, which had been nearly destroyed by a 6.6 magnitude earthquake in October 2016, leaving only the facade behind. After 9 years, the Basilica of Saint Benedict of Norcia, Italy has reopened for worship following a 9-year reconstruction of the 13th century structure destroyed by the 2016 earthquake. Archbishop Renato Boccardo of Spoleto, Norca consecrated the newly reconstructed church on October 31st, the eve of All Saints' Day. The Basilica stands at the birthplace of Saint Benedict, founder of the Benedictine order, regarded as the father of Western monasticism and one of Europe's co-patron saints. 9 years ago, on October 30th, a 6.6 magnitude earthquake completely destroyed the basilica, leaving only the facade standing. An adjoining monastery of Benedictine monks, who were also the caretakers of the basilica at that time, was also destroyed in the 2016 earthquake. Reconstruction of the basilica and crypt commenced in December 2021, utilizing as much of the original material as possible while integrating earthquake-resistant engineering and accessibility features for people with disabilities. The project totaled 15 million euros. In a message sent for the Basilica's dedication, Pope Leo XIV stated that the restoration of this significant monument, renowned for its historical and artistic values as well as its role as a vibrant center of Benedictine spirituality, serves as a visible symbol of the challenging journey of religious renewal undertaken in recent years by the entire diocesan community. During his homily at the dedication mass on October 31st, Archbishop Boccardo stated that the doors of the basilica now open to welcome everyone seeking the light and strength for their journey in Christian life. A Benedictine monastery was originally established in Norca in 10th century but was closed by the Napoleonic army in the 19th century. In 1999, a group of American monks re-established the monastic community in Norca. After the 2016 earthquake, the monks relocated to a former Capuchin monastery about 1.5 miles east of the town. By mid-2024, they had completed the reconstruction of the earthquake-damaged site, and the community was officially elevated to the status of an abbey. Representing the faith and creativity of Catholic education in England and Wales, a group of students and educators travelled to Rome to participate in the Vatican's Jubilee for Education celebration. The Vatican has also recognized Catholic schools across England and Wales for their exceptional response to the Jubilee year, honoring the significant impact of their witness as pilgrims of hope. Vatican recognized Catholic schools across England and Wales for their outstanding response to Jubilee year, celebrating the powerful impact of their witness as pilgrims of hope. This year, over 1,000 schools made a Jubilee pledge, committing long-term to Catholic social teaching and global solidarity. Christine Allen, director of the Catholic Agency for Overseas Development, shared that children and young people have embraced the call to be pilgrims of hope with creativity, compassion, and deep commitment to Catholic social teaching. Thousands of students displayed Jubilee banners across towns and cities declaring that they are working together for a better world while taking part in prayer, acts of service to support their communities. A group of students and educators traveled to Rome to participate in the Vatican's Jubilee for Education celebration, showcasing the faith and creativity of Catholic education in England England and Wales. The Catholic Agency for Overseas Development's Jubilee for Schools lead, Bethany Friery, shared that the team was thrilled to be at Vatican, seeing it both as an endorsement and recognition of the remarkable ways schools in England and Wales have brought the Jubilee to life. She explained that students have been actively putting their faith into practice by sharing prayer cards, creating jars of hope, and collecting for those in need. According to her, the Jubilee year has inspired children to stand in solidarity with their global sisters and brothers and to work toward a world where everyone can flourish. The Jubilee for Education coincided with the proclamation of St. John Henry Newman as the Doctor of the Church during the Jubilee Mass on November 1st. In an apostolic letter dated October 28th, Pope Leo XIV urged educators to place the human person at the center of education, cautioning that when education loses sight of the poor, it loses its very soul. That's all for today. Until we meet again, God bless and thank you.